earn returns to the operators and land in the period of the land reform. Therefore, we can say that, here's the second point. The share belongs, okay, in 80s and 90s, the beneficiary is of the Green Revolution is the land reform beneficiaries. But those benefits are getting smaller and smaller and almost nothing in the wet season. So, well, that's a trend in the wet season. Although we still have some amount of the return in dry season. Okay, for the future. In the short run, because the stagnation of the yield in the wet season is the main reason of the little profit in that season. So the future task is to improve the wet season yield. And the reason is not unclear to me yet, but maybe unfavorable weather or abiotic stress in the wet season. So we need the progress in that area of research. And in the long run, wage of the higher labor will start increasing because of the aging and also the development of the non-agricultural sector. And this is actually the inevitable event along the course of the economic development. Japan experienced this in the 60s, and Korea, Taiwan too, and China is now experiencing this trend quickly. So in the Philippines, to maintain the agriculture profitable, the Philippines needs to introduce labor-saving technology soon. For that, agglomeration of land and mechanization is necessary condition, because mechanization becomes very machines works very efficiently in a large-scale farm. Therefore, that the Philippines needs the active land rental market for agglomeration of the farm and farm product. But it seems to be very difficult. One of the main reasons is the continuous extension of the Land Reform Code. Land Reform Code introduced in 1972 is still, the government keep extending, and yeah, the law is still implemented. Therefore, landowner hesitant to rent out in fear of confiscation of the land by the land. So my recommendation is just don't extend, just do it comprehensively, massively, and then let rental market determine the allocation. Okay. Otherwise, the similar thing will happen in the future in the Philippines. What Japan experienced right now, inefficient farming in a small scale farm, would be the bottleneck of the rice farming in the Philippines. Okay, this is the last slide. This shows how inefficient the small-scale farm in Japan. In 1960s, there's not much difference between small-scale 0.5 hectare and large-scale farm. This is a total cost. It's not much difference between them. But in 2008, small-scale farm is so inefficient, very high cost, relative to the large-scale farming. And this inefficient small-scale farmer can survive in Japan because rice market is highly protected from the international market and rice price. So this one became possible at the cost of the consumer. If Philippines doesn't want to, experience this kind of thing in the future, I think important thing is the activation of land rental market. Well, that's all. Thank you very much. Any questions?
time for questions.
Maybe for detail, Randy, Esther, or Faye, who actually more familiar with the data set can answer.
Okay, thank you for a very interesting presentation. I would like to know whether or not you have contact with the scientists here at Erie to know why there is reduced yield in the wet season. And
I'd like to know that too, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, whether you have contact with them. And second is, do you know whether in Philippines they are also using stress tolerant varieties?
Maybe somebody knows better on that.
We are looking at the varieties that are being grown using the farm level survey data. In the Philippines, the stress tolerant varieties are released mainly in between 2000 and 2009. So a lot of saline tolerant varieties have been released, but none of them have come up in these areas because they don't need it there. And there are some flood tolerant and drought tolerant varieties, I think 4, if I'm not mistaken, developed in the latter part of the year. But it's too early to see if they will be adopted there because it needs a little bit more time.
Yeah, I think this is an important point because one of the purposes of doing this is to feed back information to the scientists. That's the number one objective, is to tell the scientists what's happening to their technology. You know, who's adopting, who isn't adopting, why. And in Central Luzon, as you point out, there's a huge drainage problem. And I want to talk to you about one lady here. I see Faye is back here, and you know, I like to talk to farmers. That's one of my habits, you know. And this lady here, she's younger than me. She's only 81, but she was in the original survey. Her name is Lydia Sanzo. And Lydia, you see, you start asking me, the only regret I had is we didn't take pictures in 1966 to see what these people look like over time. What's happened? And this fits into, it's a footnote to what Kei is saying, and that is, you look at the family. In the first 1960s and 70s, everybody grew rice, the whole family, and the source of income was from rice. In the 80s and 90s, non-farm income has become even more important than rice income. 2000 on, you have remittances. So now I visit Lydia, and Lydia lives in a house that's up here because it floods every year. We need that flood resistance variety. But it's a house just like yours and mine. It's got TV, it's got you know, air conditioning and stuff like that. Where does the money come from? Well, I said, Lydia, you seem to be living pretty well. I've got 2 kids in California, and 1 in Singapore, something like that. Now, it's not always that great, but it raises a question because what's the next generation going to look like? And this is part of what you're saying. Are we going to, one of the things now is that these 2 hectare farms really haven't changed much since 1966. Is farming in Central Luzon what's it going to look like in the next generation? Are the family going to hold on to the land, hold on to the house for remittances, or are the farms going to get bigger? And that's not just a question for the Philippines, but it's for Asia, but it's a kind of unique question here because the Philippines has remittances. I mean, I don't know if you saw in the paper yesterday, I mean, billions of dollars coming in from remittances, and that's a unique problem for the Philippines because they did not industrialize like Taiwan, and labor was backed up in the rural areas for a long time, and so now remittances have become, you know, the solution to labor is to send them somewhere else. And that's been a huge moneymaker for the Philippines, but it's related to the future. what we just can't imagine, but that's one of the things we have to think about. It's partly, are we going to adopt these new technology on the, what do you call it, on the submarine? That's going to be an important feature. But that, I just wanted to tell you about Lydia.
Thanks, John. Very quickly, also the difference in the dry season and the wet season yield. We found out that in the dry season, 25% of the area are planted to a single hybrid rice variety, and none of the areas are planted in the wet season to any hybrid rice. So why that is the case, we don't know yet.
Rice farming is not profitable. Why do they keep planting rice? I believe that they will go on planting rice because this is what they eat. It's food security. They have something at home that assures them food. I don't agree with your lowering of the rice price. I'm a rice buyer. And you know, the price kept going up. Why do you say that it's going down? The other story I have is Agnes Rola brought me to Iloilo to see her presentation of the cost and return studies. And so I was there sitting quietly. And then after the presentation, the farmer raised his hand and said, "But that figure you have is only in the blackboard. It's not in my pocket." So, you know, whether or not they make money, you have to ask them, why do they get planted rice? It's food security. So, if they stop planting rice, what will they eat?
Yeah, well, that's why the wet season rice farming is still very, farmer keep doing that. Yeah, they profit is less, but still for the food security they do rice farming.
Well, yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. I think it's a very nice overview on the part of the economics. I totally agree with Dr. Barker, and I think it would be nice to have the off-farm activities maybe to put into context the importance of rice production for the household through time. I don't know whether that's possible or not. I have actually two questions there. One is about the representativeness of the data set. How confident are you to extrapolate these results to the whole farm population of Central Luzon? And the other question that I have then is, I mean, I think, as Dr. Barker said, it's a unique data set in the world, not only for rice, I think for agriculture science in general at least. And what is the future of the survey then? Are there plans to continue it, or is something that will stop here and then just mine the data and learn with those data mining as well from the past? But what is the perspectives for the future for this data set? Thank you.
Okay, the first question about the representativeness. The root area is the granary of the Philippines, so it's in the Philippines, it's relatively the favorable condition for rice. And in that area, the groups have selected plot along the highway, so the access to the market, access to the city is much better than ordinary farmers. That's bias. So we have to carefully interpret that. So if you look at declining importance of rice in the farmer, this is more, that kind of aspect is more exaggerated among the root farmers.
to follow up? Or about management, for example, would you expect any differences in crop management?
Well, for me, I think access to information may be better, but later, sooner or later, farmer around the Loops farmer can access the information. So, in that sense, I don't think many big difference. And for the future, yes, we should not stop this one. Then I put my comment on in the long run. I would like to see how that will happen in the Loop survey area.
Okay, could you put the table of the variety?
Name
change
or
of
generation?
the generation? Yes. It's very amazing to me that how quickly they adapt
They do.
new varieties. How could they do that? How do they have access to extension workers or the markets, and how and do you have, if you calculate like area weighted wage, area weighted age of variety over time, and I think and then that would be easy to compare with the data from other countries, and especially what I'm doing in India, it would be interesting to compare. In India, by the way, in eastern part of the India, the area weighted age is about 25 years.
What is area weight?
Area weighted age of the variety. Age of the variety. Like how long?
The seedlings.
Yeah, the age. Well, how many years ago the variety was released in the area, and you can calculate the age of the variety.
Oh, okay.
But my question is, how do they replace varieties so quickly?
Well, one of the reasons is the access to the new technology is very good in this area. There is a field rice nearby.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and also, because we do a group survey here, they occasionally meet Erie people and they learn technology. So access is very good. Age, I think, because we have data of the variety, we can calculate the age of.
4 years for wet season for the last year and about 2 something for the dry season.
That's
We
really
calculate
short. That's really.
for the last
So
season.
the lag between the release and then the.
A previous study by La Union calculated about 10 to 11, but they used the National Survey of Rice-Based Farm Household up to 2002, 2003. So that's for the entire country, but for this particular area, it's very quick. They even adopt varieties that are not officially released yet.
One thing I should mention is that if the PI is working on another study. Hello? Hello? Anyway. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, batteries are running.
Anyway, PI is working on
This one is.
Hello? Now I can hear myself. PI is working on another study, it's a 6-country study, of which Central Luzon is one location, and there are several other rice growing areas in 6 countries. That's something that you ought to be aware of. And because one of the questions is how different these different countries are different. Now let me give you one example. The first of these studies was done in the 1990s, and they're now doing the second study with the same area. So they're going to be able to compare 90s. But the key thing, one of the key things that shows up in this study has to do with insecticide use. The Philippines is the lowest user of insecticide among these 6 areas. China is the highest because it's subsidized, but there are many other countries that are using too much insecticide. Thailand and Indonesia are facing what K.L. Huang calls a tsunami because of the overuse of insecticide. And that's an area where, you know, we have sort of a conflict here because the private, you know, the hybrid rice, they like insecticide and they grow it in the dry season because it's more susceptible to insects and diseases. And there's this conflict even within Erie about, you know, should we do hybrids or should we not because of the insecticide issue. I just point that out because next to water management, insecticide is one of my main hobbies.
Yeah, this is actually not a question but an inquiry. I noticed that you have missing columns. You have, what happened to these rounds?
Dry season.
Dry season, right.
Right.
Even in some of your figures, what happened to this round?
Survey was not conducted in that dry season.
Okay.
Randy was missing.
Okay, so with that, we would like to thank Kei for
Thank you very much. Thank you.